Developing a high performance team is not only one of the most important aspects of your business, but one of the most difficult. So we brought in Joe Meglio, founder and owner of Game Changer Fitness in New Jersey, to show us how he developed a team that is leading to exponential growth. Welcome to Naamly University Online. I'm Elias Scar. Joe, thanks so much for coming on today, man. I'm very excited to do this interview. I love talking to you, specifically when it comes down to team development. I have been really had the luxury of watching the Game Changer team grow exponentially. And you just have this knack for collecting people. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today is what does that skill set look like when it comes to collecting people? So for the audience, can you give us a quick jump start into the journey of the quick journey of the beginning of Game Changer Fitness to like where we are at this point with growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started in May of 2013. So at the time we're recording this was 11 years ago. I was just a trainer, coach, right? I trained athletes, baseball player. That was my background. So it wasn't, we're in a totally different business now than when I started, but yeah, it was just me starting out and I was just looking to make a career for myself. And that's where I started inside of a baseball facility, about 500, 600 square feet. So super tiny space. It's where they threw the birthday parties. If you think of a baseball facility, a room that was never used, that's where it was. So fast forward 11 years now, we now have 10 locations. We're about to open up our 10th one next month, and we've got a couple more in the pipeline for this year. So it's definitely been a learning experience for sure over the last 11 years. And it took us probably 5 years to get from 1 to 2 locations, I want to say. And then from there, 2018 on, we've opened up basically one a year minus 2020. And this year we really have, last year we did 2. This year we're probably going to do 6 or 8. So we're really in growth mode at this time. So everything's been bootstrapped from the beginning too. That's there's no investors, there's nothing from the outside. It was me starting out going with Craigslist equipment. That's how it all started, right? It's not that today, but that's the 2-minute overview for you, Elias.
that's a hell of a 2-minute story. I think it's a true testament to your ability to surround yourself with really good people, your ability to identify what people's superpowers are and then develop that. Can you give us an idea of, I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer question, but I get this a lot from new entrepreneurs and new business owners, or even business owners that are just now at the point where they're ready to expand. What are the key qualities that you look for when you're looking for a new team member? Do you have this? That's got to be these key things first when you're looking for somebody.
Yeah, there's 2 sides of the coin here. There's the technical ability and skill. And early on, that was not as important when we're looking to hire coaches and trainers, because that's something that we were able to teach someone who did not have the skill. So I think you have to know what you're looking for in terms of the right hire. Now, with that said, we do have some higher leverage positions, like a manager of a location, where they need to come with a certain skill set. So they do need to have a good technical base. So you need to know what you're looking for in your business. If you're operating your business and you're looking for someone to be an assistant coach or to coach alongside you, you can groom that person and you can build them up with a marginal skill set in coaching to start, because if they've got the ability, you can get them really good. And that brings us to the other side of the coin, which is the values fit or the behavioral fit of being a good team member and what we really strive for. So I think for me, knowing what our core values are is important. And basically what that is are just the behaviors that we expect our team members to exude. This could be anyone from a trainer to a non-trainer, it doesn't matter their position, but these are just the behavioral traits that we look for in the people that we hire. One of those traits is being coachable, right? And that's why when we find somebody who is indeed coachable, you could take someone who's got a low skill set in maybe coaching knowledge or training knowledge and get them really proficient pretty quickly because they're coachable, right? So that is definitely one of the traits that we look for. A couple other ones, we are in the people business at the end of the day, right? So it doesn't really matter how much that somebody, not that it doesn't matter how much they love fitness, but what I'd rather find is someone who is into people more than they are into fitness. If you get someone who's into both, I think that's the best of both worlds. But if you have someone who loves fitness, but they don't love people, that's not going to be a good fit for somebody at Game Changer. So when we're looking at evaluating talent, people skills are really important, right? How do you greet people? What words do you use? Soft skills. Those are critical elements of finding the right coach in my opinion. And those are sometimes skills that can definitely be taught. they're not, as easily, I guess, popular as maybe the coaching skills, but they're critical. If you're going to get someone to change their behavior, you have to have the right soft skills to connect with someone and be able to influence them. So yeah, those would be just a couple of the examples of things that we look for.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal point, that if you're like a good coach is coachable. Like that's the they understand the value of a coach. They understand the value of what they're doing and their necessity. If they're going to require their clients to be coachable, they must also be coachable in order to be super effective at that.
Yes.
With
Yeah.
that level of high performer, what do you find that is essentially enticing to keep those level of high performing staff, and like as far as keeping them and retaining them and keeping them motivated with that kind of person? What have you found over this time keeps these people attached to your team?
There's a couple of things. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that my vision for my business has to be big enough so that a rock star sees they can live their vision within that vision, right?
That's
If
a really good point. Yeah.
yeah, if their vision for their lives doesn't fit within the context of my business, they're going to outgrow my business, and there's nothing wrong with that. That happens a lot in the
Mhm.
fitness industry, right? If you're running one location and you've got a great team member, the reality is, depending on the size of that business, you may or may not be able to support that person for a really long time. They may be with you for 1, 2, or 3 years, and they may be ready to move on. All depends on. So I think that's a key thing. I think in the grand scheme of things, if their vision can fit within my company's vision, I think that's alignment, right? And that is where you get long-term success in addition to that, I think some more of the short-term or the more tangible things day to day is autonomy over their work. I think that's important. Now, that doesn't mean that they implement their own training system or they freestyle how they coach, but in a managerial role, you need to give somebody room to operate and trust that they have the right skills to do the job. So it definitely depends on the role that we're talking about. But I think generally, overall, autonomy is really key. That's a big driver for people, a big motivator. I would say I think that's important. I think long-term vision is going to be key to their growth, and then us investing in the team members. I think that is a critical component as well. If team members know that you genuinely care about them personally, professionally, and you're investing money, time, energy, resources into them for them to grow, I think that also speaks volumes and is really important.
That there's two things that stuck out to me that you said. One was your vision has to be big enough, right? And then everything you said follow that, including autonomy, really falls under the same category. Like, is there room? Is there room for their vision, for their ability, for their influence to fit within inside your vision? And I find that such a fascinating uh, point, because we look at our vision as this mission, and this is what I want to accomplish. And then some business owners will wonder, well, how come I can't keep these people or keep those people? Where if you're running a business that really just doesn't feel like it has a ceiling, or that we're chasing the ceiling, then everybody gets to be a part of that change and growth. I think that can be enticing for that type of person, for the person that wants to grow, that wants to get better, that wants to improve their skill set, improve their lives. The other thing that I loved was you talked about reinvesting in your team now, and I know that's a huge part of Game Changers culture. But can you give me a little idea of what a breakdown looks like? In what ways do you reinvest in your team? Everything from continuing education to team building to investing time in each other. What does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different. It's a great point to bring up. There's a lot of different ways that happens. I think it really starts with the initial onboarding
Hmm.
and making sure that everyone is brought up to speed out of the gate quickly. So before we put someone on the workout floor, there's a lot of time, there's hours put into teaching them our training system, how we coach, what the expectations are, um, how to effectively run a training session. So I think that up front, that's critical, right? Because if you skip that and you throw someone into your training system and they don't really know what they don't know, and you have expectations that they're going to crush it, it's hard, right? When you're really not setting expectations. A lot of times we run things through our own lens of what we know, and we assume that everyone else is at the same wavelength we're at, but it really takes time to get people up to speed. So I think that's important. But outside of there, it's literally investing time in them, right? So for all of our new hires, as an example, we're meeting with them one on one multiple times, definitely daily initially, and then certainly weekly once they're onboarded and moving forward. So just investing that time weekly in the people that are on your team is such a critical component. When I work with gym owners and they're, they want to talk about their team and maybe they're up against an obstacle or they're in a good spot, but they want to continue to grow. One of the most important things is you have to have a meeting cadence with the people on your team, especially if you're a small team. There's a handful of you. There's no reason you shouldn't be meeting one-on-one with each of your team members weekly. That's one of the best ways that you can coach and mentor them and lead them. So I think having a regular one-on-one meeting cadence is critical. Then you have the other end of the spectrum where you're literally going out investing in certifications for them and seminars, and you're sending them places. One of the things we do at Game Changers, we take our whole team to the Perform Better Summit in Rhode Island every year. And that's great from an education standpoint. We do team dinners. So there's a lot of bonding and sharing, and you get to know people more than just, at work. So I think from one spectrum, it's like, what are you doing every day, every week to nurture that relationship? And then, and which is mainly time that you're putting into that person. And on the other end is what are you investing in outside of the normal day to day to give that person the resources they need. One of the things that we do is we bring you in, Elias, right? Because you are a resource for our team. So we always look to see what resources our team members need, and we invest in those resources to bring them in. So it doesn't always have to cost a lot of money to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have money, use time, and that's, you schedule it on a calendar and you meet with them weekly and you pour back into them. So there's lots of different ways that we do it. I'll give you one more example. One of the weekly things that we do at team meetings when we especially when we were one location and we had a rather large team in one location, is role playing, right? That's something that we do a ton of, and that is a form of pouring back into your team, right? It is you working on your skill set. So there's different ways to work on your skills and improve them and gather new ones, but these are just some of the examples of how we do it. One-on-one meeting cadence for sure. Role playing is going to be critical, and then learn new skills. That's sending them to a certification, to a weekend event, or what have you, where they can learn those skills and put it into that cadence of meeting weekly and role playing, and that's what's going to help to really develop those skills that you just learned.
Well, yeah. With all that, when you talk about time investment, one of the things I noticed about the Game Changer team that I found extremely powerful is how they not just leadership investing time with the entire team or the entire crew, but really the crew investing time with each other. It seems like a very tight knit group where, as you're growing from one location to 3 locations to 10 locations to 15 locations, I know that radius of Game Changers influence is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But it seems like that the interconnectivity of the team with each other is also a big part of your culture. How do you encourage that? Is it part of that process when you're looking and bringing people on and you have a real team mindset? But it also seems like you actively, by taking the team together to go to events and things like Perform Better. Can you speak to the aspect of getting the team to spend time together, essentially, and work together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's critical. There's things that we do earlier on when it was a smaller team. It was literally the time that we spent together. So that was working out together, right? So we would lift together. Yeah. We would go out and get lunch together or breakfast. We used to do a book club, right? So it was literally going out of our way to spend time with each other. We've gone golfing, right? We've done all these different things where we're literally spending time and we're just investing in those relationships. So I think that's important, and proximity is, when you're in a service-based business and you're in person, you have that proximity. So you need to take advantage of that and be intentional about creating those opportunities just outside the normal, work responsibilities, right? So those are just some of the examples of things that we've done, but we brought them in on the process, right, of even building the business too. Yeah. So I look at how we went from 1 location to 2 to 3 to 4. We had team members that were part of that process. That wasn't just me, saying, hey, we're opening up another location one day, and none of them were involved in that, right? They all were part of that. So when I look earlier on in my business, when we were 5 years in and we were a smaller team, they were part of building that whole entire vision. And everything that led up to that was just investing time in whether it was working out, whether it was doing those things that I mentioned, grabbing lunch, grabbing coffee, or whatever. We've done so much of that over the years. And it just, it adds up. And then with newer team members, we look to continue doing that as well. Again, just looking to invest time in them, and we look to create opportunities where we can get together. So we're pretty intentional about that, whether it's doing a quarterly state of the company meeting where, we're all together in one room and, we're updating everyone on the state, how things are going with the business, what's upcoming and what have you. But we look to get everyone together. We look to create those environments where we can do it outside of just the work setting too. So whether it's going, to Topgolf, going out, to a restaurant or what have you, we look to do that pretty frequently throughout the year.
I think it's a really powerful position that's counter to a lot of ways that people want to run their business, where you have this sort of like absolute control, right? And I think it's important that you have a pulse and control and ultimately responsibility for your business. But there's this fear around integrating your team into building systems, building protocols, expansion and growth. And it really just, you've painted this picture of if you want growth, it's going to require other people. It's going to require a team. And I love how the team is integrated into every individual piece. With that in mind, the last question I want to ask is, what advice would you give a business owner who's at the point where they're ready to expand, they're ready to bring on somebody? What is the number one thing you would want them to consider when they're taking on they're really starting to grow their team?
It's a concept. I didn't come up with it. It's who, not how, right? That's critical. I was on a call yesterday with a gym owner, and he's considering a second location. It's all about the people that you have in place, right? If you make that call, everything can look great on paper. You could have the best strategy, the best tactics. None of it matters if you don't have the right people in place. Everything, it won't matter, right? So that's the most important part. It is the people. It's who, it's not how. Like, you can figure out the how, right? You'll iterate, you'll figure it out with the right people. They'll figure it out. But if you don't have the right people, the tactics, the strategy, none of it really matters.
Awesome. Joe, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to the next opportunity to chat with you.
Always, Elias. Thank you.
To help you find your next star trainer, we've put a guide together. Click the link below to get it. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and if you're new here, smash that bell for alerts. We'll see you next time.